So tell me if this sounds familiar. You walk in the office, it's a normal week, a normal Monday, and maybe your boss kind of avoids you a little bit. Okay, that seems weird, but whatever. You sit down at your computer, you log in, and there it is. There's the meeting invite that just landed on your calendar before you got there. It includes you, your boss, and your HR person. And it's also in a conference room somewhere else other than a place that you normally don't meet with your boss. And it's probably down over here at a less high traffic area of your office for some privacy. Okay, now you have a pit in your gut and you're thinking, wow, I'm about to be fired. Yeah, that could happen. That scenario could actually play out. But what we're talking about today is the other scenario that could play out, and that is they're going to meet with you to talk about your performance and put you on a PIP, otherwise known as a performance improvement plan. Now, I've never seen or never been a part of a meeting like this where we sit down with an employee and say, hey, you know what? Congratulations, you're getting a raise and a new job. No. If that's ever happened to anybody watching this, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear that. But in my experience, it has been always negative. We have to document performance and talk about a plan, and it is never a surprise, hey, you got promoted meeting. But again, let me know in the comments if you guys have some different stories. I would absolutely love to hear them. So now you're sitting there and you're discussing this PIP. So I want to give you some tips that help you navigate both this conversation and what comes after that. Yes, it could inform an exit from the company either by your choice or by the company's choice, but how you react to and how you perform in the moment makes a great deal of difference, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So my name is Rob. I've been in HR for like 27 years at a bunch of different companies that I'm super honored to have worked for. And I'm on a mission to take what I've learned from there and share it with you and you can get your dream job, land that promotion, or just survive corporate America. So today we're focusing on how to survive corporate America if you're on a PIP. So first of all, let's talk about some warning signs that maybe you've seen that you can relate to, but these warning signs that the PIP is coming are also warning signs that you might be terminated. So I did another video about just that, about 7 signs you might be about to be fired, and I'm going to link it here, so check it out if you want. But let's just review for a second what some of those warning signs are. So the first one is your work's getting redeployed to other people without any seemingly, it's not like you're getting other work and then they're redeploying something else. No, things are getting taken away from you with seemingly no explanation. Or your boss is maybe conflict averse and doesn't want to talk to you about your performance, so they ghost you, they cancel meetings, they cancel your one-on-ones. That's a huge red flag. Then when you do actually sit down to talk about your feedback, maybe it's at your annual review or your mid-year review, either the feedback is super vague that you walk around out going like, why did I even bother with that conversation? It didn't do me any good. Or on the other end of the spectrum, it is super negative, and that seems to come out of the blue. Like back here, you're performing well, you're getting good ratings and good feedback from your boss, and then all of a sudden it shifts, and now it's all negative, and you're suddenly considered a poor performer. Huge red flag, and especially if you can't point to something in your performance that says, okay, that makes sense. I'm getting bad feedback because I've not been meeting my deliverables or whatever it is. So that could be a huge red flag. The other one that's a little more subtle, if you are considered a performance problem, is a shift in communication. So you may go from, hey, you're that employee that's in the know on everything, you're being updated, you're included in all the meetings, and then that shifts to where you're not included on those meetings, you're being excluded, and you're not getting all of those emails you used to be included on, or that information flow has slowed. That could be a red flag as well. So if you're relating to any of this, I would say don't panic. And I would also say if you have made it to the point where unfortunately you are having this conversation with your boss and HR and you are being put on a PIP, again, I'm going to say it a few times in this video, please don't panic, because how you respond to this could make a huge difference of how things go. So what is a PIP? Okay, if you're asking that question right now, Bravo, congratulations. You don't know what it is because you've never been put on one. And that's a good thing. But most people know what it is and knows that it's not a good sign. It is a performance improvement plan, and it's designed to get you from poor performance to acceptable and high performance and give you a roadmap of how to get there. It should contain SMART goals. Rob, what's a SMART goal? Okay, it's very simple. The SMART goal should be, here's the acronym, I'm going to put it here as well. It should be specific. It should be measurable. It should be achievable. And that one I'm going to underline because so many PIPs I've seen, actually the goals are not achievable. But I digress. Let's go back to the acronym. It also should be relevant. They can't just pile stuff onto your job and say, hey, this is now part of your PIP and you need to knock this out of the park. I mean, but they can, but it doesn't make sense in the context of what was wrong with your performance to begin with. If you're getting something that normally wasn't on your plate and saying that you have to do well in this, that seems weird and you should question that. But again, we'll get to that in a minute. And the last thing, the T in this equation is time bound. PIPs should not go on in perpetuity. They shouldn't go on forever. I actually talked to a guy last week who saw one of my videos. We ended up connecting over the phone. He's been on a PIP for like 9 months. And I cannot even imagine the weight, the stress that has caused him because he is under the gun constantly thinking that this could be the day I'm going to get fired. So most PIPs are going to be probably 60 to 90 days. I mean, it has to be realistic. You can't say, hey, your performance has to be up to expectations in 30 days. I mean, it could be, but depending on what they're asking you to do, you may not have enough time in 30 days. So again, typically when I'm coaching a manager about putting somebody on a PIP, it is from 60 to 90 days with check-ins along the way. Could it be extended for some circumstances? Sure, but you really don't want it to go on too long. If you're seeing some of these things, if they're delivering you that PIP, question it, saying, why is this going on for 120 days or whatever the case may be? You don't have to just sit there and absorb it. You can ask questions. If you are a reflective thinker like myself, that is like, hey, I need to think about this and then come back to you, absolutely do that. Don't let it get away from you where you don't feel like you're totally aligned with what the information they're giving you on that PIP and what success looks like. So now I'm just going to keep it real with you. There are success stories of people that have come off PIPs. Absolutely. I would say they're in the minority. I would say that 95% of the time it does inform an employee's exit from the company. And here's the other thing. For those people who have actually survived a PIP, if suddenly you get off of that and then everything's going well and then suddenly they think or you actually backslide, that's another problem. And most of the times people won't start up another PIP. They will go straight to Final Jeopardy and say, look, you've backslidden, you were just on a PIP at the beginning of the year, you came off it, now you're backsliding again. We're just going to go straight to Final Jeopardy and we're going to part ways here. That scenario could very well happen. Now, if it's years down the road that suddenly your performance shifts again and it does necessitate the need for a PIP, that makes more sense. But know that just because you come off it doesn't mean that the stress is gone. Yeah, some stress is gone, but you've got to keep up that momentum you gained while you were on the PIP. Now, I've seen two reactions to a PIP, right? Either people just shut down and immediately shift to looking for a job and then don't even pay attention to the PIP. Probably not the best move. Or they totally dig in and try to do everything they can to respond to the PIP and to actually get back to good performance, whether they agree with it or not. Now, I think there should be a mixed bag here. I think you should actually do both. I think you should dig in, take it very seriously, ask clarifying questions, and really have high performance with respect to the PIP. In parallel, I also think you should be looking for another job because you've got to have a solid plan B. I've said that in a bunch of videos because time and time again, I've seen people not have a good plan B and then they are surprised when the reality is they're going to be terminated and then they have to start from scratch looking for a job. So if you find yourself either thinking you're going to be put on a PIP or actually on a PIP, I would say definitely work on that plan B right now, so that puts you that much further down the road of a job search if and when the time comes that you separate from the organization. Leaders and HR people will actually frame the PIP as, hey, we're just really giving you a roadmap here. This is a second chance and everything. The reality is, is probably your last chance. No, let me re-say that. It's your last chance. The intent is to actually create that paper trail to get you out of the organization. And this is how employers protect themselves legally. They want to show that, hey, if they were sued by a disgruntled employee, they could say, look, we gave them all this feedback back along the way. We put them on a performance plan. We can document that the performance was not up to standard, and that's what led to their termination. So I'm going to talk about documentation in a little bit, because you have to be equally as skilled at documenting your way through this PIP, such that you have a counter programming if needed to what your manager or your organization is saying about your performance. All right, so let's go back just for a second. We're just going to go back to that meeting. I know we want to avoid it, right? You're sitting in that meeting. It's super stressful. I would say don't panic. Take deep breaths and try some active listening. Now, I've seen a lot of people, like I said a minute ago, shut down in these meetings and they're just taking it. They just want it to go away. And I get that. So if that's you, that's fine, but don't react emotionally. Don't react with anger. If security shows up at the outside of this conference room, that's a really bad sign. And I've seen people actually in a PIP meeting get fired for cause because of the way they responded to the PIP meeting, with anger, with violence. I mean, just be real. I've seen chairs thrown across an office before. Don't do that. No good's going to come from that. Even if the worst case, the organization calls the police, this is not going to end well for you, and it's going to inform a much speedier exit, to say nothing of potential charges if you are one of those people that become violent. So push all of those emotions down and just behave professionally in the moment. If you do need to have a second meeting after you've processed all this to understand the details of the PIP, what they're asking of you to be done, then I say, ask for that second meeting. That is obviously acceptable. I've seen so many people, again, just want that second meeting and ask for clarity. And actually, that's a good sign to myself as an HR person or to your manager that, hey, this is signaling that you're taking it seriously and you want to understand what's expected of you so you can actually perform to that standard. What I'm about to say is going to be a tough pill to swallow, and I'm not sure if I could do this in the moment, but I'm going to say it anyway. It would be advice I would try and give myself and try to take, and that is, don't take this personally. Now, as I said that, some people have probably recoiled from their TV or their smartphone while watching this, and I get it. It's hard not to take it personally, because many times we have bad managers, and the PIP is a function of their poor leadership, not so much your poor performance. But it is what it is, and you can't control those reasons all the time. What you can control is how you respond to this. So try not to take it personally. I would say, and I'm going to say this again a few times in this video, you've got to protect your mental health. So as you're navigating this past the PIP meeting and the shock of it, if you need to talk to somebody, I highly, 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 highly recommend talking to your employee assistants or your EAP program, right? They have some great skilled therapists and counselors online that can talk to you and objectively help you work through this. I'm the type of person that wants to talk to my confidants, my friends, right? And oftentimes I love them, but they're going to take my side, right? So you need to get somebody objective that can say, hey, this is how you need to approach that. I think that, and that coupled with some of your, the inputs from your friends and colleagues could be helpful as well. But let's talk about the reasons for you being put on the PIP. It could be political. Let's just own it, right? We've all seen office politics. If an organization tells you they don't have office politics, lies were told. This is a pack of lies that they are telling you. Every organization has some level of office politics. Or the PIP could be budget driven, right? I've seen where layoffs are kind of on the table as a solution to close some budget shortfalls. But before that, they will give a directive to managers to say, if you've got poor performers on your team, we want you to put them on PIPs and start actively managing their performance. That's a real scenario, and that happens frequently. So that could be another reason that this isn't so personal. It does have a budgetary component or what have you. Now, I would argue that a good leader, you and that leader should be in lockstep on what your performance looks like. You should always know how you stand with that leader in regards to your performance. If you don't, that's another problem, and it could be a signal of a shitty leader. Okay, so you're on this PIP. You need to change your mindset, right? Again, try not to take it personally, but shift to, okay, how can I grow and learn in this environment, right? You've got maybe 90 days and you can get something positive out of it that will either inform your staying with the organization or inform you going to another organization. So try to get yourself in a mindset of, okay, this is a wake-up call for me, and I'm going to dig in and learn as much as I can, even if it results in my exit. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm saying that's a goal. And if you could at least get halfway there, you're going to be in a better mental state to actually rise to the occasion from a performance perspective. You're playing chess here, not checkers. So you've got to stay sharp and you've got to, rise to the occasion. Otherwise, that exit could come a lot sooner than you think it is. One thing, just a quick note on that. I said before, PIPs are typically 60 to 90 days. That doesn't mean you're employed for that time. If there's no marked improvement, say after day 30, and we've seen no engagement, we can accelerate that and just meet with you and say, look, you've obviously not chosen to respond to this PIP favorably, so we're going to just cut our losses now. That's a very real situation. And honestly, if I was coaching a manager on this, I would probably make that call because you don't need to go to the full 90 days. So know that as well. If you've been watching this channel for a while, I've touched on the concept of, is HR your friend or your foe? So HR can be your friend running up to a PIP. And here's why I mean that, because a good HR person, that is, their remit is to be both a strategic advisor to the business and an employee advocate, right? So if you've gone on all along and there's poor performance, you're working on it, and you could seek out your HR person for coaching, for guidance, for that type of stuff. If you're getting to the PIP and you've done all that, the shift of the HR person goes to, how can we protect the business and mitigate any type of risk? So with that comes all the documentation. So at that point, HR is representing the company's interests, not the employees. We are going to try and facilitate a smooth PIP process or an exit from the organization, but that's it. So understand that the shift from employee advocacy to total protecting or representing of the company interests will probably shift at this point. And again, please remain professional at all times, no matter how hard it is. I know it's super hard. But it's only going to make things much worse if you show up angry, emotional, all those types of things. Now, I mentioned this before, so you can certainly ask for clarity on the PIP, and you should ask for it. You should say, hey, I've read this cover to cover. I've put together an action plan more detailed than the PIP itself, but manager, I've got some questions for you about what this section means, or what good looks like here. You want to have a full detailed explanation. And here's the other thing. Once you get that, I'm following up with my manager on that with an email saying, hey, per our conversation, this is what I heard from you. And just so you document that. So should you get nailed on it in one of your check-in meetings and say, well, my manager said I didn't do well. Well, you can go back to that documentation and say, I know you said I didn't do well on this, but here's the expectations that I work to based on our conversation. Could you please clarify some more? You can hold that manager's feet to the fire, and frankly, you should, because they should be a good leader at this point. And 9 times out of 10, they haven't been, because they haven't been providing you feedback. So hold their feet to the fire if you've got a PIP. The other thing, too, is make sure you're aware of who's evaluating you. We go back to politics for a second. Many times you will get a manager's manager who says, I want Andy gone, right? And I want you to put them on a PIP because you haven't been managing their performance. So that your manager's performance is being also put under the gun or under a microscope. So you need to be aware of, hey, who's going to be evaluating me? Is it just you, or is it your boss, HR? Who is it? Have that conversation, ask those questions. And then if the answer is, well, obviously my director has, oversight about, the performance plan that you're on, Okay, what is that person looking for? What does good look like in their eyes? These are the questions you should be asking. Metrics don't lie. So ask if they aren't on the PIP, it goes back to the M in the SMART goals. How is this going to be measured? And make sure that you are leaning on those metrics because numbers don't lie. And you're crystal clear on what metrics they are going to be using throughout the whole PIP to say, yes, you're succeeding or no, you're not. So I've hinted at it before, but I'm going to say it again. Document, document, document everything. Over communicating should be your go-to at this point. Following up with emails, indicating, hey, an email came through with a task or whatever it is. I've got it. This is my plan. This is, how I'm prioritizing it, just so everybody's on the same page. You want to also keep records of all the work product you're doing. Maybe it's in a certain disk or a cloud or whatever. I would say be careful though with the cloud or with emailing it to yourself, because a lot of people want to say, well, I'm going to email this to myself so I have access to it should I be fired. On its face, I don't think that's a bad idea, but I've talked to several people that, a friend of mine got laid off and they said, hey, on X date, you accessed this file and it looks like you emailed it to yourself. What was that? Be careful of how you access and share back with yourself intellectual property, whatever it is. So look at the policy and probably in the employee handbook about how your employer defines that. But put it on, in a folder on your desktop so you have easy access to your documentation about what you're doing in response to the PIP and what work product do you have. So it's at your fingertips. You've got it at the ready should it ever come up, should you ever need it throughout the course of the PIP or afterwards. And then this should be a best practice whether you're on a PIP or not. But following up, if you have a one-on-one with your boss or what have you, following up with just hey, this is what we discussed. Here's what the deliverables are, and here's what the timeline is. I heard the other day an employee, the guy I was talking to, I was just telling you about, he's on a PIP. And he would hear this from his manager. Well, I really want this done between Friday afternoon and Tuesday. And they would agree on that. So Friday afternoon comes and goes, and the employee gets a note from his manager, where was this? So had he followed up with an email, the employee would have gotten that, gotten his manager to say, oh, okay, I gave you this range. But absent that, the manager just was like, I wanted it by Friday afternoon. I lied to you when I said I was giving you a range. He didn't say that, but you know what I mean. So my point here is, even though I'm rambling, and I apologize, get it in writing, follow up with an email. It will keep everything crystal clear and gives you something, again, that counter programming should, your signals get crossed with your manager to say, this is what we agreed on. Or is that still the case or what have you? Say you're getting hints of I'm being discriminated against. I'm being treated differently based on your demographics or whatever it is. All of this documentation will be wildly helpful. You might even keep a journal, a daily log of what goes on and what you've done. And especially if your manager is ghosting you and not doing anything. It's funny, again, going back to that story I was just telling you, that employee was put on the PIP, and in the PIP meeting, this shitty manager said to him, I am not going to be available to help you through this PIP. So if you have any questions now, please ask me. Otherwise, you're on your own to figure it out. Horrible manager. If that type of stuff is happening, put it on your daily log, your note to self, maybe on your personal computer, just so you have a record of it if you ever got to a situation where you're talking to an attorney and they're like, well, what kind of documentation you have? If you're buttoned up and you've got a stack of paper electronically or otherwise to give them, that's going to make you show up better, especially from a legal standing standpoint. So the next thing I'm going to say is another hard one to do, and I'm not sure I could do it, but I'm going to say it anyway, is while you're on the PIP and after, if you survive the PIP, do the best work you can, do the best job you can. If nothing else, you want to hold your head high, even if you're not successful in coming off the PIP, and you say, you know what, I was presented with a challenge. I did the absolute best I could. I couldn't have done any better. And even though I was unsuccessful, I can still hold my head high. If nothing else, do it for that. But if you don't, if you say, I'm just going to sit here and, I'm going to come in every day until they tell me to leave, that day about them telling you to leave and firing you is going to come a lot quicker than if you actually did a good job on the PIP. All right. Now, the other question you need to ask yourself, you're going through the PIP, maybe you're in day 10 or 30 or whatever it is. You've got to really ask yourself honestly, is this actually a relationship that is salvageable? Has it become toxic? Or do I even want to work here anymore? Because this whole saga of being on a PIP and having your performance managed is going to take its toll. So do you want to be around after that? And if the answer that you keep coming to is no, then amp up your job search. Again, I'm going to underscore going back to leveraging EAP, the Employee Assistance Program. There is no shame in that. They are wildly helpful. I've engaged them, maybe not on the topic of a PIP, but I've engaged them for some other challenges I've gone through, and I cannot tell you how helpful they were. So I highly recommend it. Leverage it. Your employer probably gives you, 5 to 10 free sessions, so you're not paying anything out of pocket for these sessions, but they can be wildly helpful. So here are some signs that it's time to leave. You're getting no support, kind of like that example I gave you a minute ago. The environment's just become worse and worse as every day progresses. And you're looking around and you're like, improving here is just not realistic. And especially if you've got a poor manager that just wants you to go away. If all of that's working against you, it is absolutely time to pull the ripcord and time to really shift to that plan B. And you should be working on this plan B as soon as you get on that PIP, if you haven't before. And I would recommend always having a plan B, always kind of be in a job search, always have LinkedIn updated, always have your resume updated, because you never know when you will need it, especially these days in this year in 2025, when all we've heard about is layoffs, layoffs, layoffs. Don't get me started on the ones from the government. But here's the other thing. Don't quit impulsively. Don't let your emotions get the better of you and just quit, because if you resign, it could impact your ability to get unemployment benefits. If you're fired, that's going to be an easier path to getting those unemployment benefits. So again, you might even look at your state's how they manage unemployment and just read through all the stuff. So you're, again, that much more informed on if the day comes that you are unemployed and terminated from this company, you can help keep your basic needs met, which is going to make your job search even better, because you're not worrying about where the money is coming from for your rent, your mortgage, or whatever it is. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Being on a PIP is wildly stressful, and it's especially more stressful if you think it's been done unfairly. I can think of a former employee of mine who he called me after I had left the company, and he's like, look, your replacement's putting me on a PIP. Obviously, it wasn't fair, and I don't think it was warranted, but all of that was immaterial. The fact of the matter is, that's where he was. And while he still dug in and everything and tried to do the best he could, he was fighting a losing battle. That decision was already made. They were just going through the motions. I did see another, just as a bright note, I did have another employee that I had to actually put on a PIP. She really gave me no choice. But the way I approached it was I worked with her clients to make sure that she was set up for success, that she was doing all the right things. And I'm proud to say she came off that PIP successfully and handled it with grace, as much grace as she could muster, and dug in and did a good job. And, we kept her employed after that. And I'm really proud of her, because she's gone on to do some great things. So again, there's a quick example that something like this could actually be the kick in the ass you need to go on to something bigger and better. Don't get stuck in your being a victim here. That may be the case, but what are you going to do? What can you control in this situation is what I would say. Don't focus on what you can't control. You can't control that they put you on a PIP. What you can control is how you respond to it, the work quality you put on the table in reaction to the PIP. That's what you can do, and that's what you can control, and that's where you should focus your energy. But again, keep the plan B going as well. If you're on a PIP, I feel for you. Let me know in the comments what your experience is, and I hope that you're able to successfully come off of it. If you're not, I'm going to be an optimist here. I think good things are to come for you. And again, my name's Rob. If you liked any of this content or if you found it helpful, I would be absolutely honored if you would like and subscribe. It really helps me out because I'm on a mission to help you land your dream job, get that promotion, or in this case, just survive corporate America. So until next time, I hope you're well and take care. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.